That's Mitch Gallo. You can listen to him weekdays between 10 and 2. And of course, after every Montreal Canadiens game, and obviously a must follow on all your favorite social media platforms as Mitch delves into the three things to take away from a Montreal Canadiens game night as Montreal gets set for their holiday break. As Gallo just alluded to, very interesting schedule coming up Monday at Columbus, Saturday at Panthers, Sunday afternoon at Tampa Bay Lightning. Both games on the weekend are afternoon affairs, so adjust your watching accordingly. And we have also got World Juniors in the mix in there too, so lots going on right here. Lots going on with the Montreal Canadiens as they finally made a transaction. Ken Hughes makes a deal. I think it was interesting following Mitch Gallo on Twitter when the transaction happened because I was watching your brain work in real time. You were typing out your thoughts. Why now? Why did they make this deal? So they get Alex Carrier from Nashville in exchange for Justin Barron. Justin Barron had a pretty good sample size with the Montreal Canadiens that went pretty deep, over 100 games. The points obviously not great. I don't think Justin Barron can cry foul that he was treated unfairly or wasn't given enough room on the leash to run around and prove himself. So, like, the takeaway for me was what the Canadiens had said. They were looking for stability, trustworthiness, reliability, dependability on that right side. And as you and I alluded to earlier, the audition took place before our eyes. Arbor Jacki passes. Jaden Struble coming in for a last second scratch. He scores, playing physical. He passes the test. Justin Barron wandering around without direction, doesn't pass the audition. Walk me through where you were, where you are now in terms of Ken Hughes making this move. Uh, the confusion at the beginning, do you like it today?
You know, the whole thing with posting thoughts on social media, especially Twitter. I
Yeah.
mean, this is example A of why I hate it.
Hmm.
All right, because I wrote that I was confused and I asked if somebody can explain the move to me.
Yeah.
Right, and then people took
What'd you
that.
get?
Well, people took that as me saying Alex Carrier is shit, and I don't think he should be part of this deal. I wouldn't be able to pick Alex Carrier out in a crowd. I
Right.
had no knowledge about the guy. Stay at home, steady defenseman. You think
Yeah.
I'm watching him when I'm watching Nashville and
Right.
really like scouting and then people act like they're all experts on Alex Carrier's game. And then he plays well, and then people like come at me and they think they're dunking on me, like, oh, you see, look how good he is. It's like I never even said I didn't like the trade. I said I didn't understand it. I'm looking on the surface, not knowing anything about Alex Carrier, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I'll never lie to the people either. I'll never pretend like I know somebody's game if I've never really sat down and watched them play. People do that. People pretend like they know, and they don't. I don't.
Mm.
I don't know the guy. I've never really focused on him as a player. I looked at on the surface, the Canadians got 5 years older, they got smaller, and they got a contracted player when they told me they're going through a rebuild and want to give young guys a shot. That's what I saw on the surface. So that's why I wanted an explanation. And then some people are also reasonable. They try to explain it. Eric Carrier is solid. He's played minutes with Roman Yossi. The Canadians want to get a little bit more veteran presence on the blue line. Might be a succession plan in place here for David Savard, who's an unrestricted free agent.
Sure.
So you lose
Yeah.
that right hand shot defenseman. You have another one that can jump in his spot. So I'm looking at I'm okay. Like I'm open minded. You could convince me it's a good trade. I was just confused on the surface when it happened. And I watched the guy 2 games in. Again, never said he was crap. But a lot of people took it that way. Never intended for it to be that way because, like I said, don't really know him. 2 games here, he's been solid. Looks like a good addition.
Yeah.
I like the trade. I'm also, though, a little bit concerned. Canadians are rebuilding, and they traded a 23-year-old who was a first-round pick, and they traded him to a team, Nashville, that has been a factory for young defensemen since the beginning of their inception into the NHL.
Hmm.
So it's like, all right, what does Nashville, who also mentioned they've been trying now for like 8 months to acquire this guy, what does Nashville see in him that Montreal doesn't? I mean,
Yeah.
this still could be a bad trade. I'm not saying it is, but if Justin Barron pans out, I know fans here were already willing to just write him off and dismiss him as a player. I saw it in my
Yeah.
comments. Barron's no
Yeah.
good. Carrier is. That's why they made the deal. It's like, all right, we'll see. I'd be a little
Yeah,
bit more
yeah. To
reluctant
me,
to
like
move on from a
it's
23-year-old who can skate well.
it seems like a very much like a stopgap solution. Like Nashville needs a little bit more offense, so they're going to give a chance to an offensive-minded guy.
And they got cap
Carry
space. They got younger.
exactly. And it was funny, sometimes when trades are made, I'll go to Nashville. I want to see Nashville Twitter, Nashville social media. I want to see what they're saying. They hated the deal. Like, no, we lose Carrier. Who are we getting? Who's this? Justin Barron? Who's this guy?
Yeah.
So I found it interesting right off the hop there. Nashville was very upset that they lost a dependable guy. And like when I say stopgap, I think it takes me back, and I think I'm right. I think my read is right. Like the Canadians are about the process and wanting to win. And Alex Carrier is that guy. Like he can make the team better defensively, more stable, less adventurous, so here that now they can start winning a little bit more games, maybe minimize the mistakes, have that guy that's cool and isn't worried about his future. Like he's got a contract, he's good to go. He doesn't have to worry about that mechanism maybe hurting him. And the other thing to me is yes, it's what we talked about, you and I. I think we are right again. David Savard is going to be the next to go, and Logan Mailloux is going to be a call up
Yep.
because like
Mhm.
when I look at the defense from Caden Gooley, Lane Hudson, Arbor Jacki, Jaden Struble, I mean, that's a lot of inexperience. That's a lot of inexperience there. It puts a shitload of pressure on Sam Montembeault, puts more pressure on the forwards to make sure they're defensively aware and their back checking is tight. That's what I think the future is. So David Savard's value. I mean, I have a hard time. I don't want to pick on the guy. He's been a great pro. He's a Stanley Cup champ. Obviously, he's one of the dads on the team, but like the value here is not it's not significant. And the Canadians have picks. What do you think happens?
What do you mean you don't think the value is significant?
I mean, the value by that I mean like it's obvious to give you an extreme. It's not Ben Sherratt value, and if the Montreal Canadiens are going to move David Savard like for a late second, early third round pick, is what I see the value being. I don't know if the Canadians need that. Like I said, they have a lot of picks to play with. I think they're more interested in, and I'd like to see them be more invested in the Alex Newhook type of transactions, the Alex Carrier type of transactions. And I don't think David Savard's value is and play has shown us that there are going to be teams pushing each other over to get this guy in a transaction.
I think he'd have solid value. Now, is your price correct? Yeah, probably, but I think that's pretty good value for a David Savard. Listen, I think if you come to the trade deadline,
Yeah.
you have to really take a look in the mirror and ask yourself where you're at as an organization here. And, do they have a chance at the playoffs at that point? Like I'm
No,
asking,
no, I'm not
they
thinking
don't.
playoffs this year. I'm not thinking playoffs
No,
this
no,
year at
no.
all.
But I'm asking you when we
Yeah.
get to the deadline,
Yeah.
are they still quote unquote in the mix?
Yes.
They are.
I think they're going to be. I'm going to have them kind of where they are now, in that 7 to 9 points out of a wild card, which
Seven,
to me
seven.
would,
Okay, say 7 to 9 is too much, but I
okay,
would say if you're within 5,
yeah,
you keep David Savard. If you're less than 5 points out, you trade him because I think if you finish 10 points out of the playoffs and you have David Savard walk as an unrestricted free agent and you didn't get anything for him, that's
yeah,
bad asset management. And you could look at the late second, early third as not great value, and you might prefer getting a young player, an Alex Newhook trade type, like you mentioned. But we've seen the ability to use multiple picks in combination to acquire something. So that could be a sweetener in a deal, a second or late third. We
yeah,
also saw, the second round pick in the Lehkonen deal used last summer alongside the first round pick in the Monahan deal to move up 4 spots in the draft to select a Michael Hage. So while it doesn't seem like great value to have a second round pick or a late one, early third, those picks can be used to maneuver around in the draft or to eventually go out and acquire something you might want and might be a better asset. But I'm still very wait and see with Savard because if you have a chance to play competitive games in April
yes,
to try to get in, even if you miss, that might provide more value than having a late second, early third round pick. But if you're still 10 points out at the end of the season and you didn't trade the player, then I don't think it's great asset management.
So in your world, then, if they are in the mix and 5 points out of a second wild card spot, I mean that means that Logan Mailloux won't be here, right? Like, and that I think that in that context, I have a hard time seeing Ken Hughes being aggressive at all. Really, like I don't even think he would if they're 5 points out and going late February, early March, like he's not going to give up an asset to get a player that brings them over the hump into the wild card. There, I don't see that. Like that's what I'm trying to get to here. Like David Savard, Jake Evans, Christian Dvorak, Yoel Armia. Like I find this timeline fascinating for where this team wants to be and how do they maneuver and do what you don't want them to do, and that's keep them and then lose them for absolutely nothing.
It's such a
It's a tough one.
game.
It's a tough one.
It's such an internal game that they're going to have to play,
Yeah,
right? Because they're going to have to evaluate between being honest with themselves and where they're at, and also trying to figure out how these type of moves are going to affect the mentality of the players. Like people
exactly.
really overlook that stuff. People really
You're right about
armchair they armchair quarterback in a way where or armchair GM in a way where they really just look at surface things.
Mm,
Like oh, we're not winning the Stanley Cup this year, so trade all four of them.
right.
Like a lot of fans look at it that way. Like, oh, we need to stockpile more picks because we're not good enough to win right now. Whereas the actual managers have to gauge the temperature of the team and have to think about how removing guys from that locker room is going to affect the well-being of the mentality of the players.
I always remember Nick Suzuki's reaction when he found out Sean Monahan was dealt. It's a real thing. It really is, and the value. I think some people, and I'd put my hand up, like you learn to appreciate good veterans, what they bring. Cole Caulfield told you, when the Canadiens were your Western Conference champions, and Corey Perry was there. Even when Corey Perry left, Caulfield was still reaching out to him. Hey, what do you think
Yeah,
about this? I'm in this position. How do you think I should deal with this? Like, it's very, very important. Max Pacioretty during his time here, even before he was a captain, he's like, man, we don't have experience here. Like, we need some help. We need some guidance. So I think Gallo brings up a very interesting perspective, something to keep an eye on as we move forward.